What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be reviewing my buddy Ian Cummings' 7-round mock draft. So it's going to be over an hour of fun, and we have already graded well over 200 players with full all-22 grades that you guys can check on the show. If you guys see a name on the board and wonder why they're there, there's a video out describing probably why they're there. So feel free to go check those out as well. Below that is going to be all the great ways to get involved in the community, and that is going to be very easily accessible by the link tree. Gives you access to Twitter, which is where I'm posting the most at the moment, but also Instagram, etc. But most importantly, those two sponsors, Olipop as well as UnderDog Fantasy. UnderDog's a great company that supports me, and they have bets for the NCAA season that just started, but it's not week 1 yet, so you guys can still get in on it. Just saying, they have some pretty damn good bets. You can go check out Broshmo's in my stream from it's the last stream on the show, so you guys can go check that out. But at that point, I ended up going through all the bets I made. It was 8 bets. I put 150 down, and it could get me up to 12 grand, and I'm pretty much confident on 7 of them working out, minus injury. So there's some pretty good deals that you can do there. Of course, play responsibly. Use that top link, though, when you do in the link tree, because it gets you right into the fun, and it puts my code in there, sends me $60 full transparency. But at the same time, I use the app. I love it. Don't tell them that I would do it for less, because that doesn't help out my negotiations. But let's get right into this, because it's going to be a long video. But yeah, Ian Cummings, I've had plenty of conversations with Ian. I text from time to time. Obviously, every holiday, we always text each other. So good to know that Ian is still out and about. I obviously follow him on Twitter as well. But the first overall pick is a trade up for Carson Beck by the New York Giants. Denver's projected to have the #1 pick at the moment. So, I'm not a big Carson Beck guy. I'm not low on Carson Beck. I think I'm probably about average in terms of the overall consensus. I just think he's a fringe starting quarterback in the NFL. And, he's not top 32 quarterback in the world. I think that's fair to say. But some people think of him a little bit higher than others. And, hopefully that ends up being the case. Good football is always better than being right. And New York having to send, essentially a 2nd-round pick in 2026 and a 3rd-round pick to move up 1 spot. I don't really think Carson Beck would have been taken. I assume, obviously, Broncos are going to be trying to move out of that spot. But he's a good addition to the team in terms of being an upgrade over Daniel Jones without having much in terms of unknown in terms of his fit to the offense. He fits like a glove. He's pretty much a better version of DJ. So continuing on, the Broncos go Mason Graham at 2. If you acquire an extra 2nd and a 3rd-round pick, and Mason Graham was your guy, go for it. I just don't see the value of Mason Graham. I don't think he's a Jalen Carter-esque type of player. He's a really good block shedder, and he's still developing his game in terms of the actual impact. But when you do look at interior offensive line statistics, you will see that there are certain interior defensive lineman duos that performed far better versus top-tier interior offensive line talent than Michigan's did. So just keep that in mind as well. You got to be able to compare these guys, because at the end of the day, whole entire sport is a game of comparison. It's not just how well you do on the field. It's also, when you come to the draft, how well you do versus other players and how well you perform versus colleagues. And Mason Graham's a great player. I'm not trying to shit on him, but for the #2 overall pick, it's a new standard, right? This is the Jalen Carter standard. And Jalen Carter only fell because he, had that whole racing incident. So continuing on at #3, the Vegas Raiders go Donovan Smith. I know that Ian's a big fan of Donovan. I like Donovan as well. He's a fun quarterback, but I'm not really fully sold on Donovan Smith being a 1st-round player. He's very boom or bust. And, I think too many turnovers for my liking. But good athlete, very fun to watch. At 4, the Saints go Emory Jones. He could end up being a guard if it ends up happening. But, he's kind of projected to be a guard at the next level. A lot of people do believe that that's his long-term spot where he ends up going to. But at the same time, he could end up playing that right tackle spot if you need him to. And then if Talia ends up working out at left tackle, then that's kind of ideal. My only issue would be the fact that I have a big concern as to whether Emory Jones could last at right tackle, or vice versa. If Talia can't last at left, then you're kind of having a competition there at right tackle. And that's going to be a little bit tough to basically say one guy's going to have to be out of an optimal position if both of them do succeed at right tackle. Then you get the Panthers going Travis Hunter. So they do need a corner. They probably need a wide receiver for the long run as well. I'd heavily prefer for Travis to be used as a corner, and luckily for the Panthers, I think that'd be where he'd go. So, he's just a player who has high stamina, but I just don't think he's not an unbelievable athlete in terms of top speed or anything. He's just fluid, and he has a lot of stamina. So it's good to have. I think the Panthers could use a corner or a wide receiver for that matter. You got the Jets going Jalen Milroe at 6. They trade up from 14 apparently. And, the Titans end up getting a good amount of draft capital. I do not think Jalen Milroe will be a 6th overall pick player. Looking at how DeBoer ended up, developing Michael Penix, I didn't see Michael Penix get noticeably better mechanically. Luckily, Penix just had a lot more experience, and he was doing really well even at Indiana before he ever transferred to Washington. So I don't really see that development that, he's probably going to get in the league. And, Jalen Milroe, I think, would have a similar fate in terms of that development. But I think the floor is a little bit lower in terms of the overall mechanics. But Jalen Milroe is a fun player to watch. I do love him to death. It's just number 6 overall. Again, we're talking about a different standard. Number 7, the Cardinals go Abdul Carter. They do need some edge rushing help, of course. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the news, and breaks my heart when I keep up with the news and this is what I find out, but their first round pick, Darius Robinson's out for, I think, a minimum of 5 weeks or until week 5. He'll probably be on IR. Forgetting the injury off the top of my head, but pretty sure it's foot related. And just regardless of the fact, it just sucks because, BJO's out and then obviously your first round pick's out. Xavier Thomas is doing well, so that's a big plus. At the same time, though, you didn't just need one edge rusher to succeed. You drafted multiple for a reason. Commanders then go Luther Burden by removing Jahan Dotson to the Eagles. This is almost a perfect fit for Luther Burden. So I do think that is a really solid selection. It kind of does fit that same exact role that I would have expected for Jahan Dotson. I'm not saying they're the same player by any stretch, but in terms of the role that they should play in the offense as somebody who's a little bit more dynamic, get the ball in their hands, and then, have that potential deep threat ability, I think that's going to be perfect. So Luther Burden could be a really good addition. I'm just not a super huge fan of his motor. He kind of half-asses the majority of his plays, and to me, I want someone who's willing to be putting the pedal to the metal all the time. Will Johnson at number 9 for the Buccaneers. He's the best player in the draft. He's the best player I've studied since 2020. So he's a great player. I'm not saying that since I've studied guys before. I just didn't grade players before that because I'm not old. No disrespect to the guys who've been doing this longer than I have. But, there's time has its bounds. It has its clasps on us. But at number 10, the Chargers go Colston Loveland. I don't think a tight end should ever be selected at 10 unless they're Brock Bowers type. And Colston Loveland is not that. I love the storyline, but I just don't think that's going to be realistic. Patriots going Tetaroa McMillan. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Tetaroa McMillan would be a pretty interesting receiving core. My only issue is the fact that it's lacking a lot of athleticism. Tetaroa can build up speed downfield. I like that about him, but he's not someone who could be just charge off the line and be extremely explosive. Someone who you're just going to be really reliant as a pretty much possession and deep threat guy. Don't really like that with the blend of other guys that they have. I'd prefer for somebody who's more of that route running type of player, which in my opinion, you kind of already have in Pop Douglas, and I'd probably want to get someone who's just a little bit more physically able to be a pure wide receiver 1. But Tetaroa McMillan's not that type of route running, separating type of dude that I would want to complete the New England Patriots receiving core. Steelers going Connor Wigman at 12. Fuck it, I'd take it. I mean, it's not. So far, Justin Fields doesn't look great. Neither does Russell Wilson. I just dropped my Steelers deep dive, and I mean, I felt pretty bad initially. Like, coming to the season, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, we're gonna upgrade a QB, and it's like, is it that much of an upgrade? You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole new system. It's not like our offensive line is perfect yet. I mean, Troy Fautanu so far has already shown injury concerns. So I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if the Steelers could potentially go sub 500. I have a saying, Mike Tomlin will sell his left nut to be able to not be sub 500. So I just will continue putting him barely over 500. At that point, though, I do think that a new quarterback is probably going to be what we need to go after. It's that or a starting corner. I don't think a wide receiver is necessary in the first round. It's a strength of ours to be able to draft him down the board. So I do love this idea. Connor Wigman has a ton of potential. If you get Russell Wilson there for one more year to at least kind of be that mentor, it could be a really good idea. It could. So I wouldn't be against that at all. And again, that's coming from me, who I love my Steelers. So I'm very biased. Cowboys going Nick Scourton. I love Nick Scourton. He's number 4 overall on my board. I just don't really see a need for Nick, because I think this is kind of overlooking like my boy from Western Michigan that they just drafted in the 2nd round, in Marshawn Kneeland, because they have a similar physical profile between Scourton and Marshawn Kneeland. So I just don't really see, I don't understand the thought process behind that, because I mean, you could have that rotation, but you know, Marshawn Kneeland should be that successor, and you don't really need to spend a first on that. Even though, I mean, hey, it's best player available. I'm not going to shame him for it. It's just, if we're trying to think about logic here, which Cowboys don't always do, but we all know that. I do think that that is something you could bring up in that discussion. Tennessee Titans got an extra 2nd and 3rd round pick by moving back, and technically another 3rd round pick as well by moving back from 6 to 14. They ended up selecting Jonah Savania. I'm not going to be a fan of this one. I love the idea of the Titans getting Jonah, but the fact is it's way, way too early. Like, you still have some really top-end targets, and I'm not even talking about guys who I'm an extremely big fan of compared to other people like Jaden Higgins and Jack Kaiser. Like, I'm not talking about those guys, or Marcus Mabeau. Like, I'm talking about Ben Morrison, right? You could create arguably the best corner duo with Snead and Morrison, and obviously in the slot, you got some good dudes there as well. I mean, you got a good couple of guys in your slot right now. If you wanted to address interior offensive line, which I think Jonah Savania would probably be that, you got Tyler Booker and Donovan Jackson, who are phenomenal. I mean, hell, if you want to take a swing on a top-tier potential interior offensive lineman, go Jaden Roberts. All that to say, I like Jonah, but it's like at 14, you're talking about him over other players that I think are far superior. Again, that's my opinion. A lot of people like Jonah Savania more than I do, even though I did like him. It's just I see he's very, very raw and doesn't have a 1st-round tackle to continue coaching him up like Morgan last year. The Vikings going Ben Morrison is kind of the dream scenario. He's feisty. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's honestly really, really solid. So big win there for Minnesota. The Colts then go Malachi Starks. I think this is perfect with the safeties that are, you know, coming up for a contract, and you know, just overall the safety talent could be upgraded as well. I think Malachi Starks is perfect for that. The Browns then go Kelvin Banks. I mean, based on their tackle contract situation, it makes sense. I would not shame this one at all. At 18, the Seahawks going Dayon Walker. Another defensive interior seems a little bit interesting. I did drop my Seahawks deep dive. If they are at 18, this is where you can start justifying rolling the dice on, you know, if you think a quarterback could be the reason. Like, you have to obviously diagnose why the Seahawks are here. I don't think Geno would be the reason. I think the offensive line. If we're going to be honest, I think you know this as well. You guys are pretty lucky to get Connor Williams. Like, he's somebody that he is statistically your best offensive lineman at this point. You might need to be looking at a future at right tackle. George Fant's there, if I'm not mistaken, for 1 more year. And he's not the youngest. He's not a spring chicken. And, you know, Abe Lucas has been dealing with a lot of health issues. You need to be able to watch out for that. I say Marcus Mabeau, who should be coming on the show within the next week or two, would be my ideal selection. But at the same time, you could even look at the other side. I mean, Charles Cross has been okay. It's not like he's been like legendary the way that he kind of should have been, but he's not bad. It's just you can easily identify other spots on this team that could use value that is, I mean, if you're thinking about it, return on investment far greater than Dayon Walker. At number 19, the Falcons go Mikael Williams, keeping a Georgia guy there in Georgia, going from, what is it, Athens to Atlanta, so not too far away. But Mikael is someone who is very, very, very talented, who needs a lot of refinement. But I think that right here, like my boy Ian says he will need development. So we'll see what happens here. But he is very, very, very high potential, and I think that'd be a good fit. The Jaguars then go Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU. That's perfect spot for him to go, especially since some people think he could be kicked into a guard because of his arm length at about 33 inches. He's, to me, awesome. He's a good player. He's at where's he on my board? Number 18 overall. So this is right in that range. I really do like him. And again, that's with a lot of guys who I have absurdly higher. And yes, things are subject to change. But some of these guys, like right above him, where's he at? Azariah Thomas, number 12 on my board. Like, that's a big projection because he was, you know, rotated in a lot. Like, there's going to be a lot, and there's some dudes who've been transferring. So we're going to certainly see how that ends up falling, but that's the fun part of the preseason. You know what I mean? Like, you get to get excited. But Will Campbell's a good addition for the Jaguars with their tackle situation. James Pierce for the Bears at 21 is fantastic. You know, I'm lower on James Pierce than a lot of people. But I mean, he's what, 33 on my board? He's 32. So I just think he needs more development. He's almost there. He's a good edge rusher, and I have him higher than some other guys that have been mentioned before. So very happy to see James Pierce on the Bears. I think that'd be a great fit as well, that 1-2 punch with Montez Sweat. Tyreek Williams for the Philadelphia Eagles. It depends. Yeah, Milton Williams, if he leaves, this could be something they look at. But, dude, man, it's pretty much, if I'm thinking about it, tight end, you could develop a right tackle, but Lane said he wanted to be here for a couple more years. Linebacker certainly still is on the market. I think they could send a pick for Ernest Jones. Howie's always lurking, trying to make trades. I would not be surprised to see if that happened. But tight end's like the big one, man. I mean, they do kind of need to start upgrading that tight end position. They could end up trading back and getting that as well. But defensively, I think that's a good route. It's pretty much tight end or edge rusher. I don't see defensive interior being a route that they really value to this degree based on the guys that they do have. Like, you don't need 3 defensive interiors that are first-round picks. Hate to say it. And Tyreek Williams, as much as I love him, is not as good as the other two. But Buffalo Bills and go Siobhan Ravel. I ended up just adding him and ended up watching him as well. I think he's my corner 14. He'll be around my top 75. Very, very athletic. He would be a good addition there in Buffalo. So I'm very intrigued to see how his game develops. And I don't really know why he's staying at Eastern Carolina, but we'll see what happens. I saw actually he is faster than 4.4 speed, but he is very explosive. So he can end up certainly flying. I saw in a play where he was trying to track down a runner that he just took off. So we'll see what happens. Ravens go Fernando Carmona. We gotta speed this up, don't we? Like, we're already like 20-something minutes in. Fernando Carmona, he's a transfer from San Jose State, if I'm not mistaken. There's no all 22 on him, so we'll be watching him when Arkansas all 22 ends up coming out. But offensive line for the Ravens, good idea. Dolphins going Tyler Booker. I just doubt they'll value this based on the speed of their offense. They had like the second worst offense, and they had the fastest time to throw. And so basically they kind of mitigate that issue, and I don't think that the offense has been lacking too much. So I doubt that they'll put the value of a first-round pick there, even though I love the value of the player. Hello? All right, there we go. Ads. But then you got the Niners going Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton has a ton of upside, even though Florida State got their ass whooped yesterday, which that's the only game I've seen so far. So don't ask me questions about that just yet. I'm going to be catching up on all those games and actually taking time to dissect it over the week, because I think that's a little bit more appropriate than, you know, just kind of going a little bit insane and watching everything. But Patrick Payton, he's athletic, man. He's still athletic at a bigger size. I love to see that. He did not look slow. But Florida State got their ass whooped because DJU is going to be pretty much an employee of the year for McDonald's after he's done there at Florida State. And that's a good thing. It's good being employee of the year, but it's pretty obvious his future's not in football. Then you guys said today, Bengals going Chris Brazzell, wide receiver out of Tennessee. I'm pretty sure this is the kid out of Tulane who's transferring to Tennessee. Tulane all 22 for some weird reason. Impossible to find. I just don't even understand, because they had it for Michael Pratt, and it's like pretty obvious that you could, you know, pretty much watch a player by just knowing where they are on the field in all 22, because when you watch tape, it's, you know, if it is for a specific player, they'll just highlight a dude. It's not like they're changing the tape. So Chris would have been on there, but I mean, it's just they hit it. But by the way, Tennessee, they have multiple dudes at 6'3" and 6'5" that are really, really solid receivers. Tennessee's a very underrated squad this year, so keep an eye out on them. You got the Lions that going Princely Umamuland. I'm glad to see this guy get some more love, man. I mean, he's my number 33 player. Like, doesn't get any love, but getting another edge rusher for the Lions is paramount. I think that's a great move. The Rams then go Kenneth Grant. Not a bad idea. I mean, really freaky, him and Kobe Turner, and then Braden Fisk. That'd be really intriguing, because I would love to see Braden Fisk be also kicked as a partial edge rusher. At the same time, you know, Kenneth Grant's going to be a good addition. I'm not going to shame it too much. At that spot, that's worth taking that investment. Like, dude, get these ads out of my face. But at number 30, the Chiefs go Tacario Davis. Tacario is a really, really solid corner. Where's he at on my board? He should be right here at 35. There you go. Just has really tough time changing directions. I think that's why there were a lot of targets his way. He had a lot of pass breakups and interceptions. That's a big win. But at the same time, the NFL quarterbacks have a faster ball, have faster reaction time. It could be the difference between those all being completions instead of being incompletions, so to speak. But I do really love the potential if you could train him up properly, which I really pray that you can. This guy's going to be unbelievable. Jordan Hancock at 31. I'm just not a Jordan Hancock guy. Apparently, I'm the lowest guy on Jordan Hancock in the entire world because he's my lowest graded defensive back. I'm really not a fan of him. But the Packers don't need anything, so we'll just talk about it as a defensive back. So basically, you're just going after best player available. If that's what you guys see him as, then go for it. At 32, the Saints trade up to select Shedeur Sanders. Apparently, the Texans are supposed to be the winners of the Super Bowl. Cool. Shedeur Sanders goes at 32. It'd be interesting to see him compete there with Spencer Rattler. Both of them have reported personality concerns. But then at route number 2, we got the Broncos starting out with Denzel Burke. A fantastic pairing up there with Mason Graham. He's a first-round quality player, no doubt. Ashton Jeanty goes to the Giants at 34. That actually feels a lot like Devin Singletary. He has a lot of that power, vision, explosiveness, and contact balance that you're really looking for. That's a good fit. Dude, these ads, I know that it's pissing you guys off probably as much as it is pissing me off, but number 35, the Las Vegas Raiders selected Jayshawn Barham. It's a little bit early for me. I liked him back when he was a true freshman at Maryland. Ended up shouting him out back when he was a true freshman, but I think he needs a bit more time to develop. I don't know if he's going to be coming out this year. Then you got the Texans via that trade back going on Emeka Egbuka. It's not an awful idea because you do have Robert Woods probably going to be gone. Robert Woods is not there. He is there, but he won't be there after this year if I'm not mistaken. And then also Stephon Diggs is on the 1-year contract. So there is a vacancy to go after Emeka Egbuka. I'd prefer for linebacker, but that's okay. The Bears then go Donovan Jackson. I think you could end up playing left tackle, excuse me. But apparently, Tevin Jenkins might not be there next year. If that's the case, Donovan Jackson's a great guy to fit in there. But I do think you should end up getting a crack. I don't know why Ohio State doesn't do this for... and then same thing for Bama, by the way. For Bama's guards, Roberts and Booker. And then for Ohio State with Jackson, I don't know why the hell they do not let these guys try out and tackle, because they have tackle builds and tackle length. It doesn't make sense to me. And tackle athleticism, too. Titans then go Isaiah Bond at 38. Why not? This guy is electric, so I love him to death. I'm a big fan of what Isaiah Bond would bring to the table for Tennessee. It'd bring a nice deep speed there for Will Levis. At 39, the Cardinals go Harold Perkins. So Harold, he's very, very, very weird in terms of his role. So it's funny because Harold was an edge, pretty much moved to linebacker, and then their first round pick, which was Carter, ended up being a linebacker transitioning to edge. It would be very intriguing to see how both of those guys would work out. Commanders then go Barrett Carter, top end athlete who'd be probably there to work in with Frankie Louvu. I think, is Frankie Louvu on multi-year contract? I think he is, which he better be. You guys should be going for it. But Barrett Carter is a fantastic linebacker. Very, very underrated. Danny Dennis Sutton at 41 for Tampa Bay. He's big. He's a big dude. But I do have my issues with Danny. I think he'll take the step up this year. I really hope he does, but I just haven't seen it yet. I really haven't. You got the Chargers going Quinshon Judkins. Reliable back. Harbaugh got to face... Well, he didn't have... Did he ever get to face Ole Miss at his time in Michigan? I don't think so. But regardless, Quinshon is absolutely electric. I think he's dynamite and super smart. I think he's perfect for the Chargers backfield to kind of be, just that reliable down-to-down back. You got the Patriots going Josh Connerly at 43. That's interesting because he's 6'4" and he's 305 pounds. A lot of people think he could be an interior offensive line, and that's going to be really messy if you end up missing out on that. I'd be preferring to go after a true tackle build and then seeing if I can make that work over going after the freaky 5-star in Connerly that doesn't have a specified position in the NFL yet. The Steelers then go Ollie Gordon. Honestly, with the way our running back crew is, if we keep Arthur Smith as our head coach, I might not be the biggest guy on Ollie Gordon, but I sure as hell love him with Arthur Smith. I think this guy would be probably a 1,400-yard rusher, and that sounds like a crazy figure, but this is what Ollie Gordon does best. Get the ball a ton of times and, in a similar way to Derrick Henry, break one off when you just start slacking. And that's exactly what he'd probably do for the Steelers. I think he'd be a very good Steelers back. Then you got Damian Martinez here at 45 for the Cowboys. He's a biggin. I thought he was 250, but regardless of the fact he's a big dude, I wasn't a huge fan of him personally, and I think this running back class is so deep that I wouldn't be really taking guys like Damian Martinez just yet, but I really do want to see how he performs over multiple weeks there at the U. Then you got Evan Stewart at 46 for the Jets. You're just going to get really skinny in that receiving core. I prefer someone with a little bit more size. At 47, the Bills then go Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker's a beast. He hasn't gotten his full grade yet, but I've watched every freaking offensive tackle that I can versus Georgia. And Walker is someone who I have undying respect for because he's a great athlete with great size. Might be honestly graded better than Mikael Williams for me, but we'll see what happens when I rewatch him. Terrence Ferguson, he's also somebody that I still have yet to fully grade, but he's somebody who I know a lot of people love. This is a good spot for where the Colts could try to take a shot on a tight end. I still think cornerback's the number one thing to target. That's my thing. He just is. But at 49, the Browns go Drew Allar. I do think the Browns should be going after a QB. I just don't think that you'd be going after one at this spot. I know that there's going to be developmental time with Deshaun Watson theoretically, and that could end up being something that works out positively. Just Drew Allar, he's been working on his throwing motion for a long time, and I think he's still having growing pains with that. You can end up seeing there's videos of him like from pre-high school, his throwing motion that he's tried to develop through to college. And he does have issues with accuracy. And to me, you gotta be accurate. That has to be your foundation for success, man. Like consistency is so key. At 50, the Seahawks go Jackson Dart. I'm not a big Jackson Dart guy, but the Seahawks getting a guy with mobility who can make those big throws, that'd be pretty cool. I just don't like his ball velocity. But Falcons then go Rondé Gadsden, 220-pound slot tight end. Gonna be honest, I'm not feeling this one, but Atlanta getting more weapons is cool. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Now I'm at the point where I'm combining words. We have another 200 picks to go. Rod Moore, safety out of Michigan. He's a really solid, high upside safety, just coming off that injury though. We'll see if he ends up bouncing back, but never bad to add DB talent. Marion Hampton for the Bears. Too much running back talent in that group. I definitely don't agree with that one. Eagles then go Deontay Lawson. I think that'd be a phenomenal pick for Philly. I think that's probably one of my dream fits for him when I just think of the best spots for Deontay. Then the Bills go Jalen Royals. Contested catch freak. I think he would be a very good addition there for Buffalo. He has over 60% contested catch percentage, which is ridiculous. Now I got the Ravens then going Tyler Onyedim. Not somebody who I have a grade on yet, but someone who I will be having a grade on. I'm very excited to see how he'd work into this defensive interior that's very, very stacked. Now you got the Dolphins going Alec Ayom. It's Iomaner. You blame Broshmo if I got that wrong. He's someone who has a ton of deep speed, really good size, and honestly, he improved over the year. So I really do love what he can bring to the table, and he actually can certainly work there for the Miami Dolphins. He'd be a really good receiver 3. Now at 58, you got the Niners going Ephesians Prysock. I mean, Prysock's literally sitting there at number 10 overall on my board. So yeah, y'all know I really like him. The Niners would be getting an absolute steal there, which it makes sense. They went after Renardo Green, who was one of my guys last year, and he's been doing well too. Landon Jackson for the Bengals at 59. Their edge core, I think, has a lot of talent. Even though they're underperforming, I think that's just, sometimes there's just those years where you aren't fully yourself. I would not be going Landon Jackson, though. I do not see that pure upside. He's about 6'8", I thought, not 6'6". I don't know if any new measurements came out, but I thought he was 6'8", 280. I thought that was like the big thing about him. Regardless, he's a big dude. And he could work for the Bengals, just not in the second round for me. Detroit Lions going Will Shepard. I was really not a fan of Will Shepard. I really didn't like it. The one word I wouldn't use for Will Shepard is reliable. I'm pretty sure he has a 16% drop rate. So, I mean, again, I love my boy Ian, so this is all professional. I do not think this has been a very solid mock draft so far. The Panthers then go after, he's actually 290 now, Parker Brailsford. So he's a center, formerly of Washington, followed DeBoer to Alabama. one of my favorite players in this class. He's going to be probably listed like right around, I don't know, can you guys see my mouse? You guys can. Right there on the, right in this range where Jason Marshall Jr. is. He's really awesome. I found another center I really ended up loving as well that's undersized. But, I mean, these guys have really good anchors for the fact that they're tiny. And, I mean, at the end of the day, you can end up making it work. Oh, my boy Marcus. We're gonna get to that in a second. I gotta contain my enthusiasm. Trey Henderson is perfect for the Chiefs because I think he relieves Isaiah Pacheco very, very well. He ends up just being able to have that home run hitting speed. I love it. But yes, Marcus Mabo, again, I'm gonna be able to hear this from him because it's not like this is very widely known how to pronounce his name. And does it look like I know how to pronounce names that are spelled MBOW? No, I'm trying my best. But Marcus, he agreed to come on the show, so super excited for that. And people are trying to say that I'm trying to be biased because he is coming on the show. I could give a rat's ass. I love my boy Brennan Jackson, and I shout him out for the character he has. He was never on any of the ranking videos I did. Like, my rankings here have no bias. I could give a rat's ass. The thing is, I ended up really loving his game, and he liked the tweets that I said I liked his game. That's how we got connected. So, for people who want to be douches about saying that I'm going to be biased because a player wants to come on the show, I mean, I just get excited to be able to meet people, and it's okay to have excitement. I'm sorry if you don't, but like legitimately, Marcus is not sitting at number 7 overall on my board because he's coming on my show. Like if he said no, or if he just didn't respond, he'd still be 7 on my board. It's like, cool, dude. I get to have someone who I really love their game. So there, I want to address that because people, like 2 people ended up bringing it up. And again, there's going to be haters out there. I get it. But it's still worth it for me to be transparent with you guys. I owe you guys that. That's why I have such a positive outlook on Marcus. It's not because of the fact that he might be coming on the show. Should be coming on the show, agreed to. But most importantly, because of the fact that I love his game. And he was listed as an interior offensive lineman for Broshmo to watch on his board. And I just ended up looking at the position reps because a lot of guys sometimes can be classified as tweeners. And, you know, at about 305 pounds, it's not 300, but at 305 pounds, it's like, okay, you know, I can understand that. Like maybe he could be kicked inside the NFL level, which Green Bay loves those kind of guys. But when I watched him play, I mean, the biggest issue was the fact that when the anchor breaks, like it's almost like when it rains, it pours. But I mean, the fact is this guy is unbelievably talented. And I said he pretty much has hand-to-hand combat ability when it comes to the way that he plays. Like, it's not like an edge rusher where some edge rushers have really good hand technique, but this was almost unbelievably calculated. So I think that is big plus for Marcus, and I think he's going to be a massive addition to most teams. And Green Bay, I mean, hell, they somehow find a way to continue snagging dudes who are very talented as tackle guard hybrids and making them work at any position. So I'm super excited to see how that would work out. Texans then go Jeremiah Cooper. Iowa State's not a defense that I've been particularly watching too heavily. We'll see what happens there. But round number 3, you got Tez Johnson to the Broncos. I love the fact you pair up Tez back with Bo as well as Troy Franklin. I think that's fun. I like that. The Giants are going Xavier Nwangpa. He's a big hitting safety. He'd be the Xavier McKinney for you guys. I think that'd be an excellent addition. Then we got the Vegas Raiders going Azariah Thomas. Ringy dingy dingy, baby. Number 12 overall on the board. He is ridiculously talented, just very, very unexperienced. I doubt he comes out this year. But at number 68, the Saints go JT Tuimoloau. That's a proper place to take him, man. That is the proper place to take him. And he'd work well with the Saints. He's also, in that range where, you know, the Saints like to develop these bigger, more talented edge rushers that haven't fully reached their potential yet. And so I think that would work quite well. Ashton Gillette. I don't know how to pronounce his name because name pronunciations, maybe I should be better at that. So, you know, as the year goes on and I watch these guys, obviously I'll change it. But I prefer more to care about how they're going to play versus how to pronounce their name. That's just the thing I do. I try my best, but I'm no Bengal when it comes to name pronunciations. But Ashton, he's going to be a good addition for Carolina. It's going to be a little early for me. Has zero bend to him, but he has very, very good push on the pocket. You guys can, again, watch the Edge video to hear a little bit more about him. The Chiefs then go Ariante Ursary. A really explosive tackle, mauler mentality, absolutely. They're talking about if Kingsley Suamatea gets off to a slow start, I think that Ariante should be a guard early on as he develops his pass blocking technique. But this dude could be a big winner as a guard. I think he'd be a phenomenal interior offensive lineman. Cardinals then go Barry and Brown. That's going to be, I want more size to this group. And I don't really know if Berrien would ever develop into a wide receiver too. I like Barry and Brown. I like Kentucky players in general, but I think he's a little role specific at the moment. And at 71, especially for the fact that Berrien's small, I'd be wanting somebody with a little bit more twitch or size. At 72, the Commanders go Terrence Brooks. He's a big dude, but like literally the first play I watched of him, he got absolutely freaking toasted. So it's like, I have my issues with Terrence. I think he's a little bit bulky, but again, feel free to watch the corner deep dive. I'd prefer for you guys to do that where you can actually understand rather than just getting a tiny little synopsis that is honestly a disservice to the amount of time that I put into those videos. But at 73, the Buccaneers go Tate Ratledge, super high floor guard, big fan of his game. Buccaneers honestly wouldn't be too shabby. It wouldn't be a bad idea ever to upgrade the offensive line with someone who's pretty much a guaranteed success. The Chargers, Los Angeles Raiders. Oh, got a flashback there. Los Angeles Chargers, flashback as if I wasn't even alive back then. Jordan Birch. He honestly popped off to me quite a bit. He's just a freakishly weird build. 6'6", 290. Don't know how that would work out, but apparently with the fact that they ended up getting the kid from Bama, who I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, it makes sense that's a little bit up their alley. Just no Boigby. At 75, the Patriots then go Fadil Diggs, edge out of Syracuse. Gonna be honest, never stood out to me. We'll see what happens. It's not like I've studied him and he didn't stand out to me. It's like just when I watched Syracuse games, did not see him as a top 100 player because I just didn't see him. So TBD, maybe he is that guy who's a diamond in the rough. Steelers then go Dalen Everett, cornerback out of Georgia, a little bit athletically limited, but he needs to get his head around to look at the ball. But besides that, like those two factors, he's going to be a really, really good player. 74-7, the Cowboys go Trey Harris. He fits the Cowboys. I think that he'd actually work well as a role-specific receiver. He's not going to be a wide receiver 2 on this team, but I think if you can end up getting somebody else in the rotation, like obviously like a younger version of Brandon Cooks, Trey Harris could be a really good compliment. I don't mind that. Then at 78, the Titans go Jamari Caldwell. Gonna be honest. He did not, like, Oregon's defensive line, is full of dudes. What the hell, man? This site, I swear to God, Pro Football Network is the bane of my existence. But, I mean, the whole entire defensive interior for Oregon is awesome. I'll just say that. I haven't been able to study these guys in that level of depth, but still worth commenting on. Jaden Roberts for Jaguars. This guy is an absolute physical freak. I doubt that he'll ever escape the top 50. Like, he's just that special, and he is just that strong as well. I don't know if he's going to escape the top 20 because I think he'll be the first guard chosen because he's that physically talented. 80, the Colts go Damani Jackson. Let's talk about physically talented. This dude flies. I think that he'd be really, really solid. He's probably that dark horse to be round 1 corner for me with the proper development. Nice Peebles. I've heard a lot about him for the Browns. I don't know if defensive interior is really a position I'd target for him. I'd be continuing to throw rocks at the edge position, see what sticks. Maybe some more nickel, see what happens there because, there's some contract dispute that might be going on there. I don't know. The Browns are really well developed. 82, Seahawks go Luke Lachey, or Lachey, excuse me. I mean, I just haven't seen enough of Luke Lachey recently. So TBD on him. We'll leave it there. Patriots go Kobe Bryant. He's a stick bug, but he brings the heat. He is a big hitter, and he's very physical for his size. I think it'd be worth taking a swing on him at 83. Jaguars then go Kyle Monungai, running back out of Rutgers. A lot of people love him. He's one of the guys I told you about. Like I was talking about those NCAA season bets, which, again, go to that link tree. Use that top link if you haven't signed up for an account already. And you guys can get going on UnderDog Fantasy. You get up to $1,000 for free, by the way. Like, not for free. It's a match, but you guys can get that in bonus cash. When you do sign up for the first time, they just boosted it from $250, so it's pretty sick. But Kyle Monungai for like 1,000 yards is one of the ones that they do offer, so feel free to check that out. If you guys love Kyle Monungai, you can end up maybe making some money off of his success. Then you get the Bears going Dane Key. if he's more consistent, again, you guys should be checking out my 2-hour in like 11-minute, 11-second receiver video for this. But Dane Key is somebody who I said with more consistency could be a legitimate threat in the NFL. Eagles then going Jonas Sanker. Did not see him pop off when I was watching Virginia's defense, but that doesn't mean that he can't. I don't think the Eagles need to go after more safety depth. Then we got Nicholas Singleton at 87 for the Bills. He's rock solid. I think that's perfectly fine for Buffalo. Good depth there. Devin Neal works perfectly with the Ravens as well. He looks good in the Jayhawks uniform. I can't see him pretty much in anything else but a Ravens uni, and he's just super duper reliable. I don't think he's an RB1 potential, but I think that he is somebody who is well worth taking around the back end of the top 100. At 89, you got the Eagles going Trey Moore. Forgetting which guy this guy is, but there is a particular edge. Actually, I think it's Braden Sorrell is the guy, the edge on Texas that I really like. I haven't seen enough of Trey Moore. And at 245, man, you got to get somebody with a bit more size because you're going to be replacing Josh Sweat at that 260 plus frame. And BG. Like, I do think that's a little bit of an oversight. Niners then go Andrew Makuba. I don't know why, but that rings perfectly. I don't know. Deep down, I think that's going to be the pick. Super versatile. I think he's going to be in the slot this year. So we'll see what happens because they're kicking Jedi Bear into the boundary. Anthony Belton for the Bengals. He should be a guard, but you technically could get him as a tackle. He is a road grader. He is a beast. Mauler mentality. Jets going Tyler Warren. Perfectly fine with me. Very talented tight end with a ton of upside. Needs to be more consistent. That was the biggest issue, was the consistency. Rams and go Ricardo Hallman. He's somebody who is very talented in man-to-man coverage. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he's fluid as hell. And he's not the best at processing when it's around him, but he is someone who's a good ball hawk too, man. It's very, in off coverage, it's hard to find a better corner in this class. But I also do see him jogging quite a bit. Now the Chiefs go after Jaden Higgins. My number, was he 2 or 3? He's number 3 player in the class. Wide receiver out of Iowa State. He's just perfect frame, 6'4", 215. It uses physicality well, generates separation, smooth mover. Pretty solid release package as well. He just doesn't really do much wrong. So I really do think he would work well in that Chiefs system. Caden Prather at 95. I like Caden Prather. I actually like the other receiver. Forgetting his name, but we'll see him eventually from Maryland off like soon enough. Caden Prather's solid. 6'3" build, over 200 pounds. I think he could certainly bring some juice to the Packers receiving core, but it's a little early for me. Actually, where the hell do I even have Prather? I mean, it might be like right around here if we're gonna be honest, but I'm gonna check for like one more second. I couldn't find it. I think you guys could end up pointing it out. We'll probably find it eventually, but I also spoiled the rest of the board for you. Dante Corleone, I think, is out for the year, if I'm not mistaken. But not only that, Dante Corleone looked really, really bad. I mean, the more I watched him, the worse he got year over year. And I was watching Jawan Briggs kick his ass, and they were side by side. So I just don't think that he's draftable. At 97, the Niners go Josh Simmons. Tons of potential. I think that especially if Trent Williams stays for another year plus, this is a perfect understudy, so I'm a fan of that. Then in round number 4, Broncos go Bryson Nesbitt. A weird, freaky weapon to be able to use in the slot primarily, and with the guys you have, doesn't make much sense to me. Torrey Horton for the Giants, I think that's great. After the catch threat, bigger guy, I like it. Bryson Anderson for the Raiders, I haven't seen him pop off, so TBD on that. Luke Handra, he's actually one of my interior offensive linemen that I'm about to study this next week, so we'll see how that goes. Developing interior offensive line, never a bad idea for the Texans, or for any team. Carolina Panthers then go Yahya Black, defensive interior at Iowa. Never seen him pop off, but we'll see what happens over the year. Sebastian Castro is a freak show. He's a top 20 player on my board. For the Titans, it's one of the few teams I wouldn't want him for because I think he's a really solid nickel and slot. So it'd be kind of a disservice to the really, really good slot corners that they have there. Mansour Delane, cornerback out of Virginia Tech for the Cardinals at 104. Solid value, nothing crazy. Johnny Cornelius for the Commanders at 105. Developing right tackle with a high floor guy, never a bad idea. Walter Nolan's freaky. He should have probably went earlier, even though I have him probably around this range on my board. He's still someone who I have a lot of respect for. I think he'd be a good addition there in Tampa, a good rotational guy. DeMonte Capehart, I've heard a lot of love for this dude. Will be intriguing to see him on the interior for the Chargers because they've already drafted another defensive interior earlier in this draft. Kamen Rucker for the Patriots, way too late for him, but that's a great steal. The Patriots should be looking to target edge rusher ASAP. Keon Saub, safety out of Bama, formerly, Michigan, to the Steelers. Really rangy at 109, worth taking the swing. Cowboys going Stutzman at 110. Linebacker at Oklahoma. I'm down for that. They could definitely use a little bit more excitement in that linebacking core as well. He probably won't start right away, but someone who will definitely be getting reps throughout the year. Really good coverage guy. Great on third down. Dorian Strong. I mean, I'm glad that these guys are kind of paired together, Delane and Strong. I think that they are taken a bit too early compared to their actual talent, but, worth taking swings on guys. I don't think the Jets would be a team that needs to focus on guys who are not certified studs or really big sleepers at 111, but we'll leave it there. Nick Anderson for the Jaguars, bigger dude, good blocker. He'd be kind of a nice compliment there, physicality-wise, but I didn't really like his talent overall. Lander Barton, haven't looked at the Utah linebackers, but I don't mind getting some extra linebacker rotation there for the Colts. Trevor Etienne is an absolute stud. I'd hate him on the Browns because of the fact I'm a Steelers fan. He's my number 1 running back in the class. At number 115, the Seahawks go Davison Igbenison, who is my number 6 player in the class. Not many people like him. I do. It's okay. Just be honest with yourselves, guys. Not everybody's going to agree with you. And there's randomly steals every single draft. So just be honest with yourself. If you end up messing up on something, just learn from your mistake. Never stop being honest. It's okay. And understand why you did wrong and then just try not to do it again. But never, ever, ever sell out and basically follow the herd. I see a lot of people doing that nowadays, and even people I really care about, I see them sometimes just leaning in, and when you ask them particular questions about players, it's like the logic that they bring up doesn't add up to where they actually think the players should be. It's interesting, but just be honest with yourselves, guys. I see that 115 Davison Igbenison's here. I've criticized guys who went higher in this draft. It's okay. Don't let the difference of opinion make football not fun for you. But Davison Igbenison would be a great addition there for the Seahawks, who did just get rid of Michael Jackson. 116, you got the Texans going Amir Hall. Gonna be honest, if he's number 26 from last year, not a fan of his game. He got toasted by a lot of different players. I don't think that he's worth 116th overall. Tyler Barron, if he gets his personality in check, because this dude bounced around I'm not going to say it. No, this is going to get me canceled. But it doesn't have to do with your mom. But regardless, I think that Tyler Barron, he bounced around too many teams this offseason, kind of showing a lack of loyalty. There is some concern there, but talent-wise, he's a really good player. I think Jacksonville would love that freakish size and speed build at over 260. Then you got the Bills going Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels is a stud. Is he my number 1 quarterback now? He's up there. I think he's my number 1 quarterback now. I think he is. He's up there. Yeah, he is. He's my number 1 quarterback in the class. So there you go. But that also shows you how low I am on the quarterback class. Now the Lions go Josh Farmer. Funnily enough, he randomly DM'd me last offseason being like, where do you think I'm going to go? And I'm like, dog, I have no fucking clue. I tried to predict shit, but, I don't have inside information. I just think that you're probably going to be a day 3 dude. And he still is. So he's not a bad player at all, though. Chase Lunt, tackle out of UConn. I love seeing the UConn boys up in here. Doubt that they'll go in the top 150. Malik Verdon out of Iowa State, another Iowa State defensive back. We'll have to be checking them out if they're getting this type of love. And then Tulifono. These guys, center out of Wyoming. There's no all-22 for this. Where are we watching these guys? Miami Dolphins at 122. Interior offensive line, never a bad idea. Mitchell Evans is someone who I adore to death. He's actually right there at 26 on your screen. It'd be great for Niners to be adding him. Jaden Ott for the Bengals, reliable, high-volume carrier. I just don't know if the actual success will carry over to the NFL. Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Bama for the Eagles at 125. I feel like Jahan Dotson has an extra year on his contract, quite pricey extra year as well. I would not go after Jeremy Bernard at that point. Austin Barber out of Florida. And honestly, Florida's offensive line looked pretty damn buns apart from Jake Slaughter, so I'm not really a huge fan of that overall. The Chiefs go Francisco Mauga. I did not get to him yet. We'll just be honest there, but he's somebody who has a lot of love, a lot of hype. Was not a fan of Brian Stevens and just graded him. He's actually my last player I graded. So not really a big fan of that one. Gabe Jackass. That's Jackass, I think. Edge out of Illinois. He was someone who we ended up falling in love with, me and the Discord squad. And when we were watching Johnny Newton, like, this guy is really solid. We fell in love with him as true freshman. I think that he's a good steal. Oscar Delp at 130 is ridiculous. He should be much higher than that, but the Dolphins get a steal. Same thing with Jabbar Muhammad. Could be a slot, but I mean, he's somebody who could easily hold up on the boundary. Roman Hemby, he's a solid running back. Just 132 is a bit early for me. Billy Bowman's a big hit stick dude. I love him. The Saints could certainly use that type of enforcement. Ernest Green as a guard for the Panthers at 134. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to go after a pure backup guard there, but, you know, that's fine. Jamon Dumas Johnson, he's a good coverage linebacker. Hello. Okay. I don't know what the hell's going on there, but Jamon Dumas Johnson for the Titans at 135 is a good addition. Rangy, good coverage dude from Georgia, now at Kentucky. Cardinals go Jeffrey Bossa. He's listed as safety, but he's a linebacker last year, if I'm not mistaken. He's really, really fun. I have him listed as a guy I need to watch. He's my guy based on, you know, just initial evaluation. Cam, you guys can tell I haven't watched this guy. Safety out of Washington. Did not pop off to me, but we'll see what happens there. Commanders getting some extra depth at safety. Not a bad idea. Antoine Juice Wells getting after the catch threat at 138 for the Bucs. Not a bad idea either. Kendall Bowler, Florida A&M defensive back. Again, guys, I don't have access to PFF Ultimate like some guys in scouting departments do. So, you know, it's going to be certainly limited in terms of that. But, you know, the stuff that is primarily what everybody uses doesn't have Florida A&M tape. So I don't really know where we can end up watching guys like that. But, hey, power to y'all. Jalen Lucas, running back out of Florida State. There's a better one right now. There's actually two better running backs in Florida State that haven't even been named yet. But going to the Patriots there at 140, Steelers go Alfred Collins. Good defensive interior there out of Texas. I could see that being a solid move. Cowboys going Maxwell Hairston. That's actually another good move. Cowboys have been doing a great job, actually, if you guys have been keeping track, because Deron Bland's out for a bit. I think it was a foot injury. I think he's out for minimum 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. Right now, their 6th round pick, maybe 5th, Kalen Carson, who y'all know, big fan of. He was a top 50 guy for me. He's listed to be the starter because of that. So keep an eye out for that. But, you know, Booth looked really good. Got to see the Cowboys game in person yesterday. That was awesome. And then Maxwell Harrison honestly fits up their alley as well. David Walker, you know, 143, it's worth taking a shot on him. He has some upside moves to him. CJ Daniels, wide receiver LSU. I really like them at Liberty. I think at 144, that's a good addition for Minnesota. Josh Gray, he's somebody who I think he needs a position change. Worst offensive tackle I graded out the top dudes. And then I think he was the worst offensive lineman I've ever graded. And then I have some receivers I graded but lower than that. But he had the worst player I've ever graded card for a little bit. And then he lost it. But freaky athlete. Then you got the Vikings going Phil Maffa. Phil Moffa's a fun running back. I think he'd be a good Viking. Thor Griffith from Yale, now at Louisville. We'll see when Louisville starts playing how that ends up turning out. But the Vikings getting some defense interior rotation. Not a bad idea. Kevin Winston's a fun, big hitting safety with the veterans that they do have in that crew. And maybe if you could end up getting, because you got Bates there for more than a year, but if you end up getting Simmons to stay, I think that'd be great. Riley Leonard's awesome. I think he'd be like a really, really good backup there for Jacksonville. One of my favorite quarterbacks in the class. I'll roll down a little bit for you guys so you see a little bit more. Jason Marshall for the Eagles. I don't think they need boundary corner help at all, but it is BPA. Ravens then going Jacob Gideon. Haven't studied him, but guard for the Ravens, not a bad idea. They build up some extra talent on. There's a better linebacker on Oklahoma State named Colin Oliver that I highly recommend you guys to watch because he's fun. I think that'd be a better move for Miami. Niners go Filili Famo. He's going to be a guard for me, but he is a right tackle for Washington State, somebody who needs some extra tweaking, but I think that is someone who could be the long-term right tackle answer. Jay Toya, defensive interior out of UCLA for the Bengals. I feel like they're fine at defensive interior, but it is what it is. Armand Membu, really good guard addition here at 157. He's at 42 on my board. Colin Lacey, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he's out for the year, but I know he got hurt coming there. Like, he just transferred to Louisville. It sucks that they got hurt, but you know, the Steelers could snipe someone like that as the board progresses. DeAndre Jewell is defensive interior of South Carolina. Loved being able to snipe that at school. They're a really good squad for being able to get the good depth players down the line. Zy Alexander, cornerback at LSU for the Packers at 160. It's a bit early, but it is what it is. Jaquavius Marks. Pretty sure Jaquavius was on Mississippi State. He's going to be fun to see in that Marshawn Lloyd role there. So we'll see if he ends up really being worth being drafted. Jaw Joyner from Minnesota. He was productive. Absolutely. For the Broncos at 162, why not? Bills at 163, Yam Banks. I just drafted him because his name's Yam, but I've actually heard some good things about his talent. Vegas Raiders going Xavion Miller, tackle out of Auburn. They need to go after a tackle, so hopefully that ends up working out. Saints going Kelly Lawson. Dude, I ended up studying way more players than like any year at this point, and I still have no idea half of these players. And I've studied well over 200 at this point, well over 200. So this is interesting to be like, who the fuck are these guys? But of course, I know my boy Ian likes to have a lot of names that are not necessarily fully known. So at least there's that aspect to it. There's a good learning curve as well. Kelly Lawson, linebacker, is probably not the position I think the Saints need to go after. They ended up just paying Pete, so it is what it is. Panthers going Jalen Knoll. He's not a bad receiver for Iowa State at 166. Take the swing. Braden Swinson actually is really, really, really fun to watch. I thought Braden Swinson for some reason was on Texas, not LSU. Regardless of the fact, Tennessee Titans going after edge rusher, good idea. Squirrel White is fun, but I honestly didn't think he was as dynamic as what you'd expect. So the Cardinals at 168, especially with the fact I think they got Barry and Brown, a really, really small receiving core. Ethan Burke, edge out of Texas for the Commanders, 169. I would go after edge much earlier for the Commanders. 170 for the Lions. Running a linebacker out of UCLA. I have never even heard of him. I mean, I'm looking at other people's boards as well, and these names are not on there. Gus Hartwig, he's actually probably the next guy I'm studying, so we'll see what happens there. But Chargers going after another center because I'm pretty sure they went after one earlier. Not a bad idea. Elijah Clark, defensive back out of Syracuse, also for the Chargers. Again, Syracuse, not really the primary school I study for defensive backs. LaMiles Brooks, safety out of Georgia Tech. Pretty sure he made some plays yesterday, so good for him, man. Bears getting a depth defensive back. Ashton Grable, Florida A&M offensive line. I don't know where the Florida A&M tape's at, but power to y'all. And going after offensive line at this point is just probably the smartest thing you can do, as besides corners and receivers. Patrick Jenkins, defense interior out of Tulane for the Jets. Tulane's been developed some guys for the NFL, so I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Bontorier Foster, wide receiver out of Michigan State. It's the wrong wide receiver there for the Browns. You got to go after. Where did I end up putting him? Because I'm trying to remember what grade I ended up giving Antonio Gates Jr. He's at number 48 on my board. Daniel Jackson, wide receiver out of Minnesota for the Colts at 177. Didn't really see him pop off. Smil Munden, honestly, really solid value at 178. Robert Scott for the Seahawks at 179. Well worth it. He has a really solid upside. I mean, Ricky White at 180, I think is actually very disrespectful to Ricky. But if he goes to LA, I think he'd end up being a every down starter. Joseph Evans, UTSA. UTSA is a good school for talent too, man. It's if you want to throw darts blindly at some unknown schools, UTSA is where you might end up hitting some bullseyes. Jaeger Burton out of Kentucky. He was not very good in the recent years, but of course at 182, it's probably why you're taking swings. Flip Dixon, safety out of Rutgers. I love Rutgers defenders. Didn't really see him make any plays, but at 183, why not take the swing? David Van is a very, very intriguing defensive interior / edge rusher. He ends up being, he's Christian Haynes' dynamite, or kryptonite, excuse me. Like, he's the guy who got more pressures versus Christian Haynes than anybody. But, certainly someone who's a little bit hot and cold. Deshaun Pace, linebacker / safety out of UCF, formerly, if I'm not mistaken, Cincinnati for the Bengals at 185. Take your swing, man. The Bears then go Graham Mertz at 186. Cool. Graham Mertz is a good athlete. He kind of fits that Tyson Bagent, but like worse mold. Jamori Macklin, one of the receivers I did not study off of Kentucky. Did not pop out that way. Jack Nelson, top 32 player on my board. Pretty sure he is number 19, and he is. I think he's going to be an actual starter in the NFL. Ben Urosic, tight end out of Stanford, also should be coming on the show, by the way, Jack Nelson. But Ben Urosic, solid value there for the Browns. Also, he fits that role very, very well as a good backup. Justin Jacobs, formerly Iowa at Oregon. Good addition there for the Rams who are looking to shop Ernest Jones. Sean Brown, NC State safety for the Jets. Might as well take a swing on safety. Shamar Turner is actually there at number 34 overall on my board, so the Green Bay Packers get a steal. Quinn Ewers somehow falls to 193. I have my thing versus Quinn Ewers, but 193 is a bit too low. Jasheen Davis for the Steelers at 194. He has his big upside games. I think that could be what intrigues an NFL team to take a swing. Riley Mahlman's an absolute mountain as 6'8", but I do think his leverage really is an issue. So he's one of the guys who I think could even be a guard. Jack Sawyer at 196, another guy where I thought I'm very, very low. This is way lower than I think Jack Sawyer should go. There are a lot of worse players that went higher. Jack Slaughter, he's going to be, funnily enough, right in this range as well. Really do love his game, sub 300. He's still very, very talented, though. For the Steelers, I think that's a big win. Will Howard for the Chiefs, I think is very underrated. He's like, when you're trying to replace probably Carson Wentz as your backup, this is going to be exactly the type of guy you want. Elijah Roberts, probably SMU's best defender. Pony up, baby. I think that he'll be actually a really good addition. Stats-wise, he did very well last year. We'll see how he does this year. Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame at 200. I think that's right around where I have him. Like, he's around here somewhere. That's where Xavier Truss is. Where the hell is Xavier Watts? 188. So I'm much lower on him, but this is even lower than I have him. Then you got the Commanders going Matt Bedford. Heard some good things, actually, about Matt Bedford, but at 201, why not take the swing? Jay Higgins just a little bit undervalued in terms of athleticism. Like, he's just not very good athletically. And at 202, the rest of the assets make it kind of worth it. Then you got Kyle Morlock, tight end out of Florida State. We'll have to see what happens there, but Patriots going after another Florida State tight end. Interesting there. Jalen Travis, tackle at Iowa State, also going to the Patriots. Did not get to see him, but, you know, it is what it is. Now, for the Steelers, 205, Tyreen Powell is somebody who I think I have. It's a top 150 player. Good player overall. I mean, just kind of a standard, like, 3-down developmental linebacker. Jared Brown, didn't see enough of him there for the Lions, so can't give you good feedback there. Dylan Dotson, same thing for the Chiefs at 207. Edge rusher, UCF. I mean, hopefully he's big because that's what Spags loves. Jaron Bailey, wide receiver of BC for the Chargers at 208. It's a school that just doesn't have very much tape out there, man. I wish I could give you more feedback. Like, I studied a lot of players. It kind of sucks to be like here, like, damn, can't even talk about certain players. But the Colts going Kyle Kennard. Didn't ever pop out to me. You got Joseph Adedire. I mean, for Texas Tech, I think there are just much better players to probably send to the Browns than Joseph here. But, hey, power to you. Javonte Spraggins. I always love taking Tennessee offensive linemen, even if they're not that great, just because they have a solid foundation for depth. Harold Fannin, he's a really fun after-the-catch tight end for Bowling Green. He could be a big steal. Malik Carr, tight end of Houston, he was one of the guys who did not pop out to me at all when I watched Houston. You got Jordan Favors here, going as a cornerback out of Appalachian State to the Dolphins. Take your swing. Spencer Brown, interior offensive lineman out of Oklahoma. Not somebody who has enough tape, honestly, for me to have, or not enough tape watch for me to give you an honest opinion. Xavier Truss, athletic, 320-pound beast of the interior offensive lineman, going to the Giants at 216. That would be a steal. He's just not built as a tackle. Another South Carolina edge rusher for the Ravens at 217. Not a fan of that. Like, in terms of just, I mean, it's a good school to go after, but it's like, these guys just statistically don't put up much, because I go through every single week and mark down the guys who are statistically relevant, and then I end up watching a lot of those guys. I have never written down these dudes' names. Hudson Clark's a good safety, though. Safety out of Arkansas, going to the Dolphins at 218. That's worth taking that pick. They do need to get some safety depth there. Power Eccles didn't really pop out to me. 219 to the Panthers, linebacker. Cam Ward at 220 to the Bengals. I mean, you might as well. I think it's disrespectful to Cam Ward's talent level, though. Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State at 221 to the Lions. I mean, cool. Kansas State has some good corners, so I don't mind that too much for depth. TJ Sanders, another South Carolina player. There you go. Going to the Falcons. Good defensive interior depth. Leon Lowry, defensive back / linebacker out of Wisconsin to the Niners. That just is another word for Sam linebacker for them, or safety. Then you got Ulysses Bentley, solid running back out of Ole Miss, formerly SMU. He's a very, very, very explosive back. Good vision as well. Steele at 224. Ty Hamilton, ending off the draft because we don't have compensatories, at 225. Actually, I think he's better than a lot of defensive interiors we mentioned before. So Texans get probably the best way to end off the draft, because we got two dudes who I know and I love. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Support me as always. It was great to have this long one with you. See you on the far side. Peace.